Welcome to Kinesiology Taping 101. We're going to be discussing a kinesiology tape and the basics of it so you have a really good foundation before you start taping, or if you're already taping, it'll definitely cement your knowledge of it and maybe make you more effective and safer and get the most out of this new tool that's recently kind of been entering the field of clinic or sports and that sort of thing. So whatever your reason for being here, welcome. And we're going to discuss the what is it, how does it work, when you should apply it for things, and then we'll do tips and tricks at the end, which will be fun. I say fun, but what it is what it is, isn't it? Okay, so first thing, what is kinesiology tape? So basically it's a tape that's made out of typically cotton, so we're talking like 98% or so, and then it'll have a stretch material with it that's like spandex or lycra that gives it a stretch capability lengthwise but not widthwise. So the idea is that you would tape along muscle tissue or along the movement of a certain, like the along the lines of force of movement, so that you'd be able to get a certain result, whatever you're trying to look for, and we'll discuss that. So that's typical. There are some ones that are synthetic material that have like shininess to, like we're talking like KT tape, for example, has a synthetic blend. The advantage of the synthetic blend when it's working is that it dries much quicker. So if you're doing stuff like swimming and you get real sweaty, you're really sweaty or whatever, it'll dry a lot quicker, which for some people, it doesn't really matter. It's more expensive. That's something to think about. But a basic cotton roll like this one here that I have in my hand will suffice for most things. The problem is if you have a shower, because you can shower with this stuff, it's there's medical grade adhesive at the bottom, which means that if you apply it and it finally adheres to the skin, it will stay on even if it gets wet. At least for some swimming and showering and stuff, basic stuff like that. So good to know. And but unfortunately, because it's cotton, when you get out of the shower, it'll feel very similar to you're still wearing like a wet t-shirt or something like that. So it takes longer to dry off. So that's one of the negative things of the cotton thing versus synthetic, but it's much cheaper. So if you don't care about that and you just like dab with your towel, it'll dry off eventually, but it just takes longer. Not a big deal to me, but to some people, just something to be aware of. And marketing is also a big thing for kinesiology tape as well. So it comes in various colors. Some people dig it. They want to be loud and proud. So you go to a marathon or whatever and they want to be color coordinated, or if it's, they want to have pink or whatever, or they want to have red because it fires them up, or the uniform, if you're playing soccer or something like that, you'll have like a red uniform or a green uniform or something. You want to coordinate with that. If you're like that, you can have that, or you can have contrast where you have something else and you have like a different color, or you can mix the different colors. So there's kind of a fun aspect to it as well, and patterning and stuff. So if you want, there's ones with like skulls and flags and all kinds of camouflage. That enters that sort of aspect of the marketing aspect and the fun aspect of it. But some people also don't want it to be known because they're like conservative, so they don't want to have, they want the treatment, but they don't want to shout out to the world that they've got tape all of them because they're not athletes or whatever. So all the manufacturers typically come with like a beige version. And if you have darker skin, I'm sorry, they don't have like darker beige or brown or whatnot. They've got black typically, and it's free market, so they just put out what they think they can sell, I guess. That's my opinion. So take it for what it's worth, and so just be aware of that. It's one of those things, like with a lot of things in life. And so how does this even work? Yeah, that's the other question. So the idea is you typically want to you're going to apply it to muscles or whatnot. So if you have a strain, or there's a tired, achy muscle, so you might have like a long-term spastic response. So if it's tired and achy, so postural is a good example. then you would offload the muscle with specific taping. I'm not going to get into the specifics. Yeah, throw it up in the air like you just don't care. I'm not going to get into specific taping stuff. That will be other videos. So look for them on this channel. I'll be posting them as well for specific problems. So yeah, I got a knee problem, whatever. Look for those videos. They're on my channel, and they're all over YouTube really. But I have to say, you got to watch some of them because I've seen some taping for like the foot and that, and I'm like, wow, that's just wrong, or it's wasteful, because this stuff's not the cheapest stuff on the planet. So you want to be efficient in your use of it, and we'll discuss that as well in either this video in the tips and tricks part, or the actual videos for your specific problems. So offloading muscles, edema, which is swelling, and any sort of issue with contusion, so we're talking bruising, it helps with. And yeah, offloading muscles, strains, sprains, and it also can help with helping you with posture as well. So there's an aspect of giving you information back, feedback. So for example, if you're taping your back, so you have bad posture, so you're like head forward and like your shoulders are rolled because you're at the desk all day and all that stuff, so you have that sort of bad posture, you can tape the back in good posture. And then as you start to slouch or get tired in the day, you'll feel the pull sensation, which will be a mental trigger to, correct your posture. So you could use it for mental cueing as well. In the Olympics, you'll see it sometimes in training with the mental cueing as well. So if you're diving, you're doing a flip, and then you need to extend, and then you tape to the extension point, and then it helps you give you a cue mentally. If you overextend, you'll feel the pull, and then you'll correct it. So it can be used as a training cue, or if you're doing squats and you're doing it all wobbly or wrong, the posture's wrong, you can tape according to the lines of movement, and then it'll help line up your squat. So good for correcting any sort of issues with postural problems, or if you've picked up bad habits, that sort of thing, with somebody that's professional and can help guide that. They can tape you up in order to correct those guidance issues. Another thing it does is pain relief as well. So you can tape painful spots, and because it's got the interesting part about the tape is that it's along the nervous system. Obviously you have sensors in the skin and in the fascial connective tissue underneath the skin. I know this is maybe starting to be very technical. We may need to watch this video a few times over, and that's fine, and it's probably a long video, so you might need to like pause it here and there. Get comfy, get a drink. I probably should have said this at the beginning. PJs all day, and then watch this video, and we'll get through it. But as far as like pain is concerned, if you have prolonged touch, and this is the same thing with why massage therapy works, is because prolonged touch can also confuse like the pain receptors, and it also gets, if there's stimulus and the sensors are being used consistently for a long period of time, then what happens is if there's pain also included, it'll shut down some of those receptors, or at least mitigate some of it. So it'll lessen typically the pain response that you receive. So for some people, when they get taped up, they notice an immediate response or soon thereafter of decrease in pain sensation. So, and also like nerve, so numbness, tingling, blah, blah, blah. But the main reason you use taping is to increase the healing response of the body. So it helps, and how it does this is, for the typical sense as far as like muscle offloading and that, is that it helps lift the skin, and then thereby lifting also the fascial tissue, hopefully separating the two in an ideal situation, and causing surface area. The surface area then helps to move fluids around, but this also helps increase circulation as well. So that's important, because if you have the fascial layer, which is a connective tissue, if that's tight or adhered to the muscle tissue or any of the tissue below the skin, or to the skin, or connecting both of them together, that's an unnatural state. It's resistance in the body. So anything in the body, it needs to flow. Now that's the best. It's almost like a river. So as soon as you include restriction within the body, whether it's circulation or movement in the form of resistance, then the body's not at its peak form. It takes more energy to move. The nervous system that is integrated within there, the sensors and all that are also heightened. So you move, it's stuck, it pulls on a nerve, activates a response. So in some cases, this can be a pain receptor. So that's why some of the movement is just activating a nerve and causing a pain sensation. And it's not a big deal, but if you don't know what it is, then yeah, it is, because then it's hard to narrow down. So this can help with that. So it's a tool. It's not a silver bullet in order to heal people, but it's a tool in your pocket that you can use to help with the body healing itself. So the body's always doing the work, right? So if you take a pill or whatever, it's always, or you're doing exercises, stretching, you're always trying to guide the body into balance. Now the body itself, without any outside unnatural sort of things that you do, will always move towards balance. But if there's something like unnatural happening, like you eat poorly or you overwork a muscle that's not ready for that exercise, so you start a new activity and you go hardcore, there's the chance of hurting yourself. Or you do like prolonged, well, I stand all day, or I sit all day, or I don't do a lot of just movement at all, and I do a lot of one thing for hours on end or something like that. That's very unnatural to the body. The body was never designed to behave in that manner. So, and then it starts to act accordingly. So scar tissue may form in order to enhance that. So the body's always, if you don't use it, you lose it. Or if you hurt yourself or you're trying some new tasking and it's not quite sure what to do with it, it will always try to help you. Typically with, if you're standing for long periods of time, it will help with stability by adding like something like scar tissue. Now the negative aspect, it doesn't know what you're up to, it's just trying to help. But unfortunately for a lot of it, which means that you become good at standing for long, or better at standing for long periods of time. But when you try to do something else, you notice it and you feel just awful, you don't feel healthy, or you feel like, well, I used to be able to lift my leg up that high and I can't do it anymore. So you just feel old at the end of the day, or out of shape. But it can be reversed, because once again the body always tries to move towards balance, and that's where this comes in as a tool. So whether it's heat, stretching, going for therapy, working out at a gym, whatever, that going for a walk, it doesn't have to be elaborate, but that movement is so key. And then with really tight fascia, if there's restriction, it hinders the circulation area. Now circulation hindrance, I know we're going on a huge tangent, but if you understand what the body's doing, you'll understand how this works, and then you can actually use it effectively. That's why I'm going through all these details. So you may find it interesting. If you don't, oh man, I don't know what to tell you. Maybe check out another video. But okay, so circulation, right? We're talking oxygen. We're talking getting the nutrients into your cells, so at a cellular level. If you have restrictions such as the fascia's tight, and it kind of acts like cling wrap, right? Where it kind of compresses the area. Or if you have a muscle that's tight, so chronic spasm through pain or overuse or heightened nerve sensation, it's a negative feedback loop that tightens the muscle and then holds it in a tightened position. That's why you get things like knots. And if you have like stress, that's another thing. So we got hormones that are released with stress, and you get that tension in your neck. And you might need to use some to relieve some of this, but once again, it's just a tool to help out. It's not the end all and be all of therapy or what you might need. And that's why sometimes it doesn't work for some people. So some people will try it once and they'll be like, that doesn't work, it's a fad or something like that. It's just a thing, it's psychosomatic. But you might need additional therapy beyond that. So I'm here in this channel to help you with that and to get you back, where you want to be. And getting a little off topic here, I do that. It's because it's just to follow where the next idea is. There's no script or anything. So yeah, circulation. And then also the idea is with that compression of the muscle, the blood vessels within the area are also compressed, which means there's less movement. So it's like a traffic jam, basically. It's a one-lane highway all of a sudden, and everybody's sometimes down to one blood cell at a time with, and if you're breathing shallow like most of us do, then like just a little bit of, you know, in the chest breathing, and that's it. You're not really oxygenating the blood. So that's why there's like people take yoga or meditation or just practice deep breathing. And you can do this generally speaking, just deep breath, just fill up the lungs, like the belly and the chest at the same time. And just get that oxygen in there so that each individual blood cell has more oxygen attached to it. So as it's restricted, it's feeding more cells as it's going through it. This is helpful. But where the tape comes in is it provides that space to offload the area so that the blood vessel is less compressed, more blood cells can get there. And if you're doing it in conjunction with deep breathing, massage, heat, that helps dilate blood vessels as well. So cold shrinks or compresses the blood vessels. I should say the arteries in particular, because they actually have a musculature to it, whereas veins don't. But so if we're being technical, that's how it is. But yeah, heat opens up the blood vessels. So, but you can use heat on top of the taping as well. So this is good to know as well. And even if you're in the shower, have a hot shower. This won't come off, so you can have a nice hot shower. And if you have like a sore back or something like that, just let it bead on for 5 minutes, just in the area. Come out, towel off, you know, yeah, it's going to be a bit wet, just whatever, just deal with it. You know, it's not a big deal. And this can really help with that. So circulation increase helps with that, but most of it's just surface area. It can help lift off the upper dermal layer, the skin layer, from the fascia layer, connective tissue that separates the different systems, bodies, organs, can connect organs to certain bodies, but also separates muscles into systems, muscle groups, or muscle tissue or muscle fibers. They're all individually wrapped into these little segments, and it's all by fascial connective tissue. So that's what I mean by fascia if you're not familiar with it. Now the interesting thing about fascia is it's heavily innervated. That's one of the newer recent finds that they find in research, is that there's a lot of nerve endings, like a lot, more than you'd realize in that. And that's why even something as like this on the skin can make such a huge difference, even though it's not going deep. It's not like ultrasound where it's like, you know, sound waves going deep into the muscle tissue and, you know, going to deeper muscles that are underneath other layers of muscles. It doesn't do that. It's superficial, but sometimes that's enough. And that's why, it's one of the reasons why it's effective, as long as it's applied correctly and within stretch or non-stretch. So this stretch is only lengthwise, it doesn't stretch widthwise. And let me show you, I'll give you a little example of how it kind of works. So you get a visual, for those people that are visual learners. So it stretches lengthwise, so I'm just gonna, I'll show all this in tips and tricks, but basically you've got stretch like this. So that's the original cut size, and then I can stretch it out and it just stretches the tissue, and that's where that spandex or lycra come into effect. So usually they typically don't have, what's the one, latex, because that's, some people are allergic to it, so they usually don't have a latex style glue. I don't know if you can see that. I'm gonna wave it, maybe the light will clip it, but there'll be a wave pattern within the adhesive. That is so that it still sticks to you, but you also have, there's an area for breathability. So, because your skin's gonna need to breathe, that's really important. So how it works is if you're adding stretch, now you wouldn't add 100% stretch, but I'll tell you how this works. So I got a t-shirt here. So pretend this is skin, as it is, hot skin. So I'm gonna just stretch that out, apply at the ends, and typically in the ends you'd have an anchor point, so there'd be no stretch at the ends. So I'm just gonna go like that, and then I'm gonna release, and what you'll see is it'll start to bunch up. Hopefully you're seeing that. And that the wave pattern, if you remember from science class, is what the answer always was, except when I tried to answer questions with surface area, it never was surface area for some reason. Great, thanks, great tips. So this is, you can see it bunching up. I hope you can see that. So that it's small, and under a microscope you will see it lift off. And there's pictures of this online if you wish to Google it, that's fine, check it out. But it lifts the skin away from the fascial layer. That creates that gap, and this is why it also works for edema or swelling, because you get a certain area of fluid, whatever that fluid happens to be, and if it's a bruise, so contusion, it'll be blood or a mixture of plasma blood or whatever. I don't want to gross anybody out, but if you're squeamish with blood, but that's technically how it works. And then what happens it will create more space for that. So then you have the lymph system within the blood that acts as kind of like a sewage system. So that'll drain that. So creating that gap, that space for fluid to move is part of the healing response. So if you hurt any part of your body, you strain a muscle or something like that, even if you can't really see it, I'll usually notice it because I know what to look for because of my training, my background. But there will always be a slight bit of swelling involved. That swelling is part of the healing process. Now, too much swelling, obviously not good, but, and they'll be like, well, put ice on it or cold in order to minimize or to shrink the blood vessels so it doesn't add more into the area that's already inundated with fluid. But basically it creates space so that it can flow out of there, so it can drain out. That way you don't get also pain from pressure of the swelling. So good to know, right? So that's how that works. On a microscopic level, you will see it. It's funny how it's microscopic, but it's just enough to make a difference. So at a microscopic level, that's all you need, apparently, in the body. You don't need it to like, yeah, check that out. Actually, that's pretty good, now I'm thinking about it. So this is me pulling my skin away from the fascia. If I'm stuck, okay, so up here, I haven't done work up here. Hopefully you can see that, where I can't lift the skin away from the muscle belly. So that's stuck, that's adhered right now. So I would have to like rip the skin off. You can do some skin rolling as a technique that we'd use. And you'd lift. So over here it's lifting off. You can see, okay, pitch an inch. I don't know if you remember that thing where it's like the diet thing. I don't know, I'm getting sidetracked again. But that's not adhered because I can pinch the skin right off, no problem. So the layer of tissue is still underneath. So we're talking like the muscle and the fascia. If it's sticking, you won't be able to pick it up and separate it and lift it. Remember, skin is stretchy, right? So this stuff is stretchy too, so it can move with skin as well. So not all tapes are created equal. If you haven't, some stretch more than others. I'm going to take this off now. Some stretch more than others. Check out my video on the different comparison on tapes, and you will actually see this visually as I test 7 different brands against the stretch. So depending on how much they stretch, if you put a non-stretchy tape, not very stretchy tape, over like a knee joint or an elbow, like look how much range you get that, right? So it's like bunches up. So that surface area right there, almost an example, hopefully. Oh, I need to moisturize. Anyways, it's bunched up, but as you pull in, you stretch the skin out. So according to some research, it'll be like 180% of that, which is the original. Okay, so you want your tape to be as stretchy as possible, which will be the most effective if you're doing a joint like that. Now, if you're doing over, let's say, extensors of the wrist and fingers extensors, which are over here in this area, there's not a whole lot of stretch going on. So you don't necessarily need a really stretchy tape in that area, okay? So be aware of that. But over a joint, if you need to cross a joint that does a lot of bending, like the knee, for example, you might wish to have a stretchier type of tape. So you may need to buy different brands even, because they behave differently. So for example, well, actually go watch my video. Got to self-promote, right? And you can get one that's less stretchy if you need maybe some joint support. So if you have some sort of issues with ligaments and that sort of thing, that if you rolled your ankle like 50,000 times when you were younger or whatever, and you just keep hurting it, or you have really loose wrists and you need that wrist support, there's taping for that obviously. And you might want to have a tape that doesn't stretch as much, so it just provides a little bit more support. So strategically, it may matter that what brand you're actually using and what kind of tape. So a lot of people don't take that into account, but in this channel, I take it into account because I'm a bit like that. So I'm like detail oriented, and I like gear and stuff. So we can get all those details in there. What else can I tell you about it? Colors, people are going to ask you, if they see it, you know, what's it about. So it's good to be able to explain it. Beyond that, it comes in various colors, all kinds of patterns, which I don't know if I discussed it. So there's a red one there, it blends right in. So this would be something maybe I'd want to use, like I'll get red one because I'm wearing a wet red shirt or something like that. It's silly, maybe who cares, but for some people it's good to know, right? If you want to support your favorite team, whatever, they got those things available as well. Not all of them have that available, but most do. So you can use heat over it, ice over it, you can shower with it, you can swim with it. Good ones. If one's come off, they should last, here's the other thing, they should last 3 to 5 days. Now that doesn't mean you keep them on for 3 to 5 days. That's usually what they're rated. Sometimes it does call for it. I've had tape on for like 10 days because it felt okay. So the general rule that I follow is if it feels good, if it's on you and it's not like coming off, it's like ratty and coming off, just keep it on. It's fine. Unless it's getting dirty and ratty, because you can always reapply. It's not that big a deal. But if it starts to get itchy, or when you put it on and your condition, so say you have a sore like wrist muscles or whatever, you have a forearm muscles that are sore, and you put it on and it starts to feel worse, or it starts to feel itchy, that's your body telling you there's something wrong there. Or if it felt good initially, but 2 days later it starts to get worse, you need to take it off. So that's definitely one of the tips I definitely recommend with taping, is that listen to your body. And generally speaking, that's a good rule of thumb anyway. Your body knows you best and it's trying to tell you stuff, listen to it. So yeah, itchy means typically that it's aggravating the skin and it needs to come off. The problem is you might have, or whether the therapist put it on or you put it on, that you might have put maybe too much stretch, or like I said, it might have been not applied perfectly, but it's just one of those things where it's time to come off. So listen to your body. Don't leave it on because it felt good initially and you're like, oh, I just need it on one more day. No. Take it off. And another rule of thumb for taping is if you're going to apply tape for a number of days, when you take it off, don't reapply it right away. Give it a day or two rest in between. So you don't want to really become dependent on this stuff either. This isn't a crutch. You don't want it to become a crutch. You want your body to fix itself, right? So you need your body to adapt to what you're asking it to do. So if you're doing postural taping, then yeah, it's great to offload tired, achy muscles and to get fluid going. But once it feels good, you take it off. Say it's 5 days. You take it off. It feels good. Well, don't reapply it unless you need it. So you don't want to count on this. That's for sure. And like I said, pain is another one, but look for the pain videos. I'll show you taping for if you have painful spots, joints. I'll show you to tape that, different muscle, like common conditions, and I'll show various different taping because one taping style might not work for you and another one might, and it might be dependent on activities as well. So if you're taping your knee for support and you're going to run a marathon, that's a different taping from somebody that's just casually walking, or maybe is recovering from knee surgery, so knee replacement or any of that sort, or if like whiplash, this is great for that sort of stuff, or any sort of activity. Yeah, if you're playing sports or whatever, or even preventative as well. Sometimes you can tape tired, achy muscles in order to stop them from getting hurt. So I'm hurt, I strained a muscle, but I'm still going to do my activity. This is why you see a lot of Olympians wearing this stuff, because they're not going to like just bail on their event, right? They're going to keep doing. Some common person. Yeah, my back's killing me, but I need to go back to work because who's going to pay for the mortgage and stuff like that? That's where this comes in. It helps you through your day, keeps you safe, tries to keep you safe, and gets you through the day, through the worst end of it. So this might let you get away with something that if you didn't have the tape, you would have hurt yourself, re-injured the actual problem that you had, or preventative. So, or for guidance. So it can help with posture, mitigate pain, increase circulation, decrease swelling, help to increase the recovery or healing from bruising and stuff. And if you look, there's some really cool pictures on the internet for the bruising with tape and without, and I think it probably cuts it in half, the recovery time. Pretty impressive. All right, welcome to this is the practical aspect of it, where I'm going to show you some like how to cut and all that stuff to get the most out of your taping. Okay, so what we need to know is the basics of actually getting stuff organized. So you're going to need to know how much tape you need per, depending what the issue is. So if you're stretching, remember if you measure and you're going to add stretch, if it's like, if you're going to have a lot of stretch, or what they call substantial stretch, they're going to have moderate stretch and then light stretch or minimum stretch. So that'll be, you're talking 75%, 50%, and 25% stretch, and then no stretch. Sometimes it is appropriate to have no stretch at all, so you just apply it. Okay, and then you might need to stretch out either the body part that you're working on. Sometimes that's what you need to do, and then you apply it, and then it goes back on. So as you stop stretching, you go back to the neutral position on the body part, then it binds up and creates that surface area, right? So that's the different aspects of it. So if you have something where you stretched out, you probably need to cut maybe a quarter less of the normal length of what you measured, because you're going to stretch it, which makes it longer. Okay, so just be aware that you don't want to like cut too much. If you cut too much, it's almost better to cut too much than not enough, because you can always trim it if you needed to. I try not to. Don't worry too much about length. It's not an exact science. If that's the beauty of the tape, as long as you're close enough, even if you're not exactly on target and stuff like that, it still works. So that there is a sort of forgiveness to the tape, which is nice, because then you don't have to be an absolute expert at it to get the results. So that's beautiful, right? Okay, so let's cut. So typically, sometimes in the back they'll have like little marks and stuff like this. They'll have markers, so you can cut it evenly. I don't really care. It's not like I cut this stuff like I'm cutting gift wrap paper. I don't care, as long as it's like ballpark. Everything's just ballpark, right? So I would how long. So if it's no stretch, you're gonna measure the full amount to the body part or whatever you're trying to stretch. If it's stretched, then you want to back it off a bit and then cut less, probably about up to 1/4 less sometimes. So you're gonna have 3/4 of the length of what you would have normally with no stretch. So hopefully that's clear. So for example, so don't get too much. This stuff adds up, you know, it's expensive, right? So just cut some of the stuff. So here we go, cut that. So that wasn't super straight, but once again, who cares? So here's a tip on cutting. So typically you want to round the ends off so that as you put clothes on, or if you rub up on things, it doesn't catch the straight edge on the corners. The corners tend to want to catch on everything. And then once it starts to peel, if it starts peeling off your skin, forget it. It's not gonna reapply. It's like an apply once and forget it. Once it starts to roll off or it starts to fray and stuff, you're gonna have to just cut a new piece off and reapply, right? Okay. Unless, of course, like I said, it's been on for a number of days, then you want to rest that tissue for a bit and then reapply maybe 2 or 3 days later. Okay, so if it's going to be a basic, what they call an eye tape, so eye, right? And you're going to round off the edges. So what I like to do is I'll fold the two together, just like that. It's craft time to get crafty. And I'll get my El Cheapo scissors. If you do this quite a bit, you might want to get a good set of scissors, but trust me, they do get gummed up, so you're gonna have to clean them once in a while or else they'll stop really cutting. These are an inexpensive pair because I wanted to have scissors around the house and one in the car, because I do a lot of taping. So I want them everywhere so that I'm always ready to tape. It's part of a convenience thing as well. Anyway, that's me. So you're gonna start from the bottom. And now we're here. sorry Drake, had to take that one. And then just cut off. So it's almost like making those stars. Remember when you're a kid? So you make perfectly round. It looks neat. Actually looks really good when you, so that was, I cut it a bit wonky because I don't give a damn. And again, there we go, beauty. There you go, rounded. And if you're really like anal, you can, oh man, that looks amazing. But usually in a clinic, I don't have time for that. I'm doing like a bunch of cuts. I don't have time for that. So that would be one. And then you'd reapply. Now, when you're first applying it, one of the things you want to do is break the seal. You don't want to touch with your fingers the adhesive, because you might put some of the oils and that are natural on your body, or your dirty, filthy paws, because you have cookie crumbs all over it, or peanut butter, or Lord knows what. Not going to get any deeper than that. But typically you're going to break in the middle, and then that's how you split it, okay? And then you peel back, because the ends are usually always anchors. I haven't actually run into a taping myself personally in the clinic that I've used where the ends weren't anchors, but apparently there are times when you're not going to anchor at the ends, but I haven't run into that. So anyways, I'm going to tell you what I've run into because it's practical. So you just peel back without touching, and then I'll just kind of put a crease in so it doesn't like fold back like it's trying to do right there. So if I don't put a crease in and then I let go, it's harder to apply it because this thing will try to go back. So fold back to the ends, crease. You want about an inch and a half of what they call the base of it. So this is the no stretch when you apply it on the ends. So that's your anchor points, as it's called. And then you'll apply onto the skin. So if you're applying to someone else, then you're gonna have the use of both hands, unless you're the drummer for Def Leppard. He's only got one arm, PS. So you're gonna apply that like that, and then you're gonna stretch and apply, okay? If you're doing it onto yourself, what you might need to do, and I'll show that next, I'll just show you it. This is comprehensive 101 for a reason. Okay, so let's spend some money. Okay, so I'm gonna apply with stretch. So what I would do is, I like to go 100% stretch and then back off. So you know what zero is, but it's all by feel, right? So 0, 100%, and then if I want 75, it's about there. 50 for me is there, 25, and then none, right? So 100, 75, 50, there you go. And it's, once again, it doesn't have to be exactly 50%. If it's 40, it'll still work. If it's 60, it'll still work. Okay, this one tape doesn't really stretch super awesome, so that's why it's a little bit trickier for me, because I'm used to ones that stretch a bit more. So 100%, 75, 50, 25, none. Okay, so we'll do 50% stretch. So 100, back off 50, and then I'll apply on the ends. So I'll anchor with the stretch. So stretch is still applied there. I'll put that down, and then I will peel away the ends. Now I wait a second or two, because some of these come preloaded, meaning that there's 5 to 10% stretch already applied on the backing. So you give it a second so that it kind of comes back onto itself, and then you anchor. Rub, give it a bit of rub. The friction will help adhere the tape onto that. Now, if you have, it's already hard to get on there. The other thing is, when you apply tape, understand that there's 10-15 minutes before it has that base sort of structure of adhesion. Okay, so it takes time for it to adhere. Heat helps accelerate that process, but understand 10 to 15 minutes, don't be doing super crazy stretch. So you don't want to apply this right before you run a marathon or something like that. You want to do at least 10-15 minutes, and if you're going to do sweaty or if possible swimming or showering, you want to wait an hour. Hour is where it's going to have its 100% adhesion. Okay, so just be aware of that. So 10-15%, I think that some people they apply it and then they go work out, get real sweaty, and then it starts to come off, and then they blame the tape for not being sticky. But there's the adhesion it is what it is, right? It can only do so much. It is still at the mercy of physics at the end of the day. So be aware. There are some crappy tapes, but just be aware. That's one of them. So for pulling off, since we're here, if you're going to do it, if you're going to pull off dry, as is, and if you're a furry bugger, if you tape up your legs like me, then it's going to be ouchie wah. But if you're not super furry, then it's not going to be as bad. So you're going to get a piece like this, and you get pull it back onto itself. So don't pull up, because you're going to pull the skin with it and perhaps tear or damage the skin. Very aggravating. Pull against itself, and do about an inch at a time. So just do inch, 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 inch. That's the ideal way. That's the least damaging way and the least unpleasant way to do it. Otherwise, it's kind of like this. And then you just kind of do the Jean-Claude Van Damme noise when taking that off, because it hurts, man. And I know when I take it off my legs, there's like hair stuck on it, which hopefully not grossing people out, but man, that was like a waxing. That hurts. Another thing to understand as well for taking it off, it comes off a lot easier if it's wet. So a good time to take it off is if you're in the shower or something like that, it's really wet, and then it comes off a lot easier. Take it to the next level, because we're all about next level here. You can also add some sort of like oil to it, because it doesn't do well with oils. That's why you want water-based products. It's water resistant, but it doesn't work well with oils. That's why you want to clean the surface of oils when you're applying, because even your own skin oils, you got to watch out for drying, but clean the area off, make sure there's no dirt and oil there, and then apply it, and it'll stick amazing onto that. However, I have used it on with lotions that absorb readily. So as long as it's not one of those oils or lotions that makes a barrier, like a barrier cream or something like that. So usually protection from drying. So in winter or in dry areas where your skin just dries out from it, usually you'll have a different lotion or whatever that provides a barrier so moisture can't escape. It tries to retain moisture. It won't do as well on that. Okay, so that might come off readily. But if you have a lotion that readily absorbs and it absorbs cleanly and doesn't leave like an oily film, then you can apply over that and it should still work. I haven't had any problems with that as long as I've taped many times over lotion. And lotions with essential oils, because I find that works. So you got tired, achy muscle, put lotion with essential oils, readily absorbable lotion. It pulls in the essential oils, helps with fatigued, achy muscles, and then you put tape on top, and then heat on top of that. Woo! Now that's a good combination for therapy. That's when this thing goes into overdrive, you know what I mean? And then it works while you sleep. Yeah. Okay, so let's do some more taping. So say you're taping yourself. I'm gonna do one. Let's do it. Okay, so quickly. So this is how quick you can do it. Zoop. Doesn't have to be perfect. There it is. So I'm gonna tape over here. I'm just gonna make up something. So whatever. So I'm taping myself. Now I go on the end. I don't go in the middle. I go on the end. So I'm going to do that. So I broke it in half. I'm going to pull it over, crimp it, and make that that base anchor point. And then I'm going to pull this back slightly and then crimp that so that it doesn't fold back onto itself. Now I haven't touched that area. That's why you still need to touch the paper. So I'm going to apply this to the start of it. So say it's like right here. So I've got like this tendon here is bothering me in my thumb. Okay. So I've got tendonitis and I want to help increase circulation and mitigate some of the pain from the tendonitis. So I'm going to apply onto the thumb. So right there on the end, and then apply the base. Boom, anchor done. Okay, that wasn't very good there. So, okay, this is good because if you understand there's a fold there, that's a catch point. So that's usually not good, okay? So, because it'll catch stuff and start pulling off. If this happens or it folds onto itself and it doesn't go well, it's done. Don't rip off and fix it. It won't work. It won't stick. Once it's applied, it's done. So you're either gonna have to decide at that point, is it bad enough where I have to rip it off, cut a brand new piece and reapply, or I'm gonna deal with it and leave it. So in this case, I'm gonna leave it. But if I was in the clinic right now doing that on a client, I would rip this off and get a new piece for them. So in this case, the proper way would be like stretch, and then I would grab this end and then I would feed it back. So I'm gonna add a little bit of stretch. So I'm gonna do about 50% stretch here. So 100%, 50, or you can just go straight to 50 if you got a feel for it. And I'm gonna put the stretch on there, and then I'm gonna anchor this end like that. So you have to anchor after the fact because you only got one hand, unfortunately. So we're working with one hand. And then right across there, heat friction, make sure you go on the ends. I'm trying not to add in any sort of bumps or any of that. You want it nice and smooth. Friction just to help with the adhesion. And that's that. And then as I go into neutral position, you'll see it starts to bunch up like that. And especially so if I go back like this. So that right there, if you can see it, is creating that surface area. It's lifting the skin and it's right on that area that I would have an example. tendonitis of like the thumb here. So peeling off, once again, this isn't too bad. So I'm going to go with the grains of the hair. So if you go against waxing, if you go with pleasant days, there we go. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Now, of course, that wasn't the 10-15 minutes, so it came off quite readily. So the adhesion hasn't stuck on properly yet. So that's why you want the 10 to 15 before you start, oh, now I'm going to play racquetball. Calm down there, son. Maybe you need to let the adhesion work a little bit. Okay. And of course, it's not going to grip as well on hair, but I'm not super hairy. I'm not like, Sasquatch. I've never been called Sasquatch. Anyway, so that's less of an issue, so I don't have to shave, but some people might need to shave in order to use this. Going on from there, there's also other types of taping. This will be mentioned typically in other videos or in texts, or in if you go on courses, they have those available as well. But you're here because you want it for free, obviously. So, hey, so let's talk about the different types of cuts and stuff you're going to do. And okay, so there's different ones. Sometimes there's a Y cut. So this is what that looks like. So you do that, and then you're going to have to trim a little different. So that'll be the normal rounded edge, but these individually will have to. So you can either do individually, so I just try to get a nice straight speed motion like that, or you can once again fold, cut, and then it works. Okay, so it's a Y cut. So sometimes you need to split, or if there's certain muscles that split on the head, you might need to split the heads of the attachment points of the muscles. But then you still want the base layer. So once again, I like to start on the fat end. So the split ends I usually do last. I anchor last. So I'll do that, break it in between the two so that these are separate. So none of them are attached to either one. So I'll back it off, crimp, back off, crimp, and then the base layer, just a slight, there we go. So once again, inch and a half for the anchor point. And then you would do, apply that one part, pull off, wait 1 second, apply. Okay, so there, I didn't have that bunched up part now, even though it's a bit thicker. And then you would apply, so I'm pulling up like this, and then I crimp at the end because I still want at the end for it to have an anchor point. Stretch that out to whatever the appropriate stretch. I'm not doing an exact treatment right now. Wait a second, apply friction, and then you'll go to the next one. If you hear noise in the background, that's Dexter, my dog. He's snoring or something like that, a version of that. Anyways, and then you do that part. So you can see how that kind of, you might need to split something or whatever. But I'm just showing you the different types of taping. So once again, with the grain of hair for me, it's important. And then just like that. So with onto itself is the best way to do it. Boom, you're out of there, son. Sometimes there's an X one as well. So on the back, sometimes if you'll have a huge one and you'll X, and the base will actually be the middle. So I guess that would be an example of an anchor point. So I'm just going to quickly, like that. Like that. Doesn't have to be super round, like perfect. And then I'll do the fold versions of these ones. So, zoop. That was a little, see, that's a little crappy because I rushed through that. But I'm just going to take off a little bit off the end there. There we go. And then once it gets kind of really small, I like to do them individually instead of like that. Zip. Oh. So if you had like across your back, so your shoulder blade, and then the middle, this would be one. So you would split down the middle, apply onto the middle point of your back, and I'll have this for demonstrations once I get the video up, or make it if it's not already up. Apply the base layer, which would be the middle, onto your back, and then you'd, in this case, split that, and you'd go towards the bottom of the shoulder blade, like this, stretch, anchor, wait a second, anchor point, stretch, appropriate, set, wait a second, anchor. This could be a good one for pain as well. So, ow, this part of my back hurts, and then you put an X on it.
But usually you'd use individual pieces. But I'm just showing you the different types of cutting because, like I said, this is supposed to be a comprehensive demonstration video on the different types of cuts. So there would be a split like that. So that would be an example of like what that looks like. Now let's talk about edema or swelling and contusions or bruising. There's going to be this, I'm going to show you an example. So we'll have that, and let me get the red one out for just for contrast. So you can see this is a fun one. It does work. It's amazing how some of this stuff works, but this is how it's going to look like. So it usually be longer than that unless you're doing like a really small section, but let's say you're not. So small bruise or swelling, either or, this is the same technique. So round the edge. And then you're going to have what is known in the cutting or the Kinesio tape world as tentacles or fingers. I like using tentacles because it's more fun. So I'm going to have these little fingers, and I'm going to make up to the base because you remember you want that space for 1 inch or so. Now on a regular tape, this is 2-inch tape or 5 centimeter width tape, and I usually do about 4, and you're just eyeballing. Everything's eyeballing, okay? Round off the edge. These are so small, I won't actually fold them. I'll just do little rounding ones. These ones they're notorious for coming off and like catching on clothes. So you really want to round these off and protect them. And just be cognizant that that they're there and they will catch and come off. So that's one. And for contrast, we're going to use a black. And same thing. Now usually there's a waffle effect. I didn't like that, so I'm just going to trim it. Just be aware of what you're doing, right? So, and then we're going to do tentacles. So 1, 2, 3 cuts make 4, because that's the new math. And then whoops, there we go. I usually say that when I'm like working with people too. I'm like, whoa, all this crazy noise that I do. Okay, so say there's a bruise, you have a bruise here, whatever, or edema or whatever. We'll say it's a bruise. What you'll want to do, and you'll have the base layer, looks like a little octopus. And let's fix this. Okay, so you'll want to have this aiming towards the lymph node. If you're not familiar where lymph nodes are, I will mention them during other videos, or you can look them up. But this needs to point towards where the lymph node is. The lymph node is like we mentioned the sewage system, like the drainage system of the body, which is called the lymph system. So you have the actual, the lymph itself, which is what the extra, the fluid that goes into the cellular area and then gets taken out. So that eventually makes its way through these small, they're all very small veins sort of thing. That's part of the lymph system. And then eventually all things all roads lead to Rome. Well, Rome happens to be the lymph node. So they all eventually push to this one area called the lymph node. When you get sick, a lymph node would be like under the neck, where it's just under the jawline on the side of the throat. And you'll see they'll swell up, and sometimes your doctor will check on them because they'll see if there's infection, and the lymph nodes have, getting off topic, but hey, just throwing information out there. Those will swell up because it has its own antibodies and T cells and all kinds of fun stuff in there that's attacking and cleaning the area out as it's sucking up stuff and cleaning it and disinfecting it and then recycling it back into the blood system. So this, you want to point the direction of the fluid to help navigate it. So we're like, hey guys, hey fluid, go this way, or you know what I mean? So if it's under the knee or whatever, that's what you're gonna do. So first off, you're gonna do the base, of course. So all the fingers are broken up separately. This one's not, so I'm gonna split it. There we go, split and split. So they're all separate. So I'm just gonna pull back. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm gonna pull in the back here, just pop it up. So I'm pushing behind it to get it to pop out. Boom, like that, and there's the space. And then I'll get under it, do the fold, and then here we go. So I'm gonna apply it. So this is towards the lymph node. base anchor, and then you're going to, in a fun way, each individual one. So I'm going to spread them out. That's the goal. So over top. So I might guide it with my finger because I might want to add a curve, and you can do that. 1 second, anchor. Because say it's over here, right? There's like an area. So I'm just going to guide it with my finger, but create that gap in between, almost the same amount of space as the width of the actual tape itself, the tentacle. There we go. And last one, be careful not to touch the adhesive. So that's kind of what it looks like. Now we're going to add another one because we're like that. I'll add 2, and then you'll see the waffle effect. So that once again, the top of your screen is the area towards the lymph node. So there's the press. I'm going to anchor it on this side like that. So I anchored it back. So I'm going to push up because this one I didn't individually fold them, but I know I can push from the back and get it to pop out and then get my thumb underneath to grab it. So there's ways around everything. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to guide it around. And I can add stretch as I'm guiding it around if that's appropriate. There we go. So typically, the drainage aspect of it, you don't really want a lot of stretch. So minimal stretch to no stretch. And then there we go. Pop that last one. So this one's stuck, so I'm just going to break it. There we go. On the end, just minimal stretch, and just guide it like that. And then one more. Oh, see how I got that? So that's messed up. I'm going to just pull it against itself. I don't want to touch it because once I get my cooties all over it, it doesn't want to stay. So here we go. Minimal stretch around and like that. So that's what it looks like. So underneath this waffling here is the actual injury or the swelling, and you might need a longer one, or you might even do a third one like over here, whatever. I usually like to do 2, and then up here would be the direction of the lymph node. So you're guiding the fluid. You can see the movement. And you can make this longer if like it's over here and you want to guide it over here. So you can bring it around. So you're just guiding each individual tentacles. And then because it creates space under each one, when you lift off, you'll see the pictures of it where it'll be an identical picture of what was there, but it would have already healed. Whatever, if it was like a bruise, within a couple days, instead of it being a really dark sort of crimson or purpley, it will be like a mustardy, which means it's closer to the end phase of the healing process. So once again, peel off against itself. You can apply cooking oil, like I said, to help with that. You'd inundate it with like olive oil or something like that. It's good for the skin anyway. Make sure you watch for like allergies, obviously. Don't use peanut oil if you're allergic to peanuts. Hey man, it's one of those things where coffee cups say hot on them for a reason, right? Because there's people that are crazy. So that's it. So you put like oil on it for a number of minutes, and it should come off like super easy after that. And you can save yourself a lot of trouble with that. So that's a little quick tip as well. There we go. I can't think of anything else right now because I've been talking for so long. I hate talking this long, but I gotta get that info out there. So hopefully you found some interesting information in that, even if you've been taping for a while. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. And please like if the video. I'm going to try to get more out there as soon as I can on this stuff and all kinds of other stuff as well, and even some fun stuff, so it's not just all serious, you know what I mean?